Hello friends, this is Thursday, July the 24th, and just getting ready to make a new video here. Okay friends, I do want you to believe something about me or to know something about me. I do believe in a creator, a first cause, a lawgiver that resulted in all else, everything that we see. But he is not locked into a time frame. And, like I've said before, there's a lot of things that are invisible to a human being. Some of them are invisible because they're transparent, because they're reflecting light of a frequency that we cannot see, because the electromagnetic spectrum goes off in each direction for eternity, and we get to see a little band in between, just a little small part of it. And the light that's out here bouncing off of things, we don't see those things because we can't see the light. So one of the things that is invisible to us has nothing to do with frequency of light, transparency. It has to do with, well, I guess in a way you could say time, but what it is this speed. It's like we know the grass grows because we have to cut it all the time. We keep cutting it and it keeps growing. But have you ever seen it grow? No, it's on a different time reference, and it moves so slowly. Even vines, vines have this nature where they know if there's anything near them that they want to hook onto, to climb up, and so they'll reach out sometimes over 4 or 5 feet of distance, horizontally, straight above the ground, because they know a tree's over there. We never see them do that. I saw trees do something one time, and it shocked me so much I went back home and got 2 of my daughters to go back with. Well, me and Viv, my wife, was there the first time, but I went back and got 2 daughters because I wanted them to see this in life because it's so rare. They said, "What is it, Dad?" I said, "I want you to run out to the Whispering Pines with me out at Woods Run, because your mom and I just went down, and it's always like dark there, even in the middle of the day. The pine trees are so close together and have such a canopy in the woods there, these pines, that they just block out all the sunlight. And it's really dark. But Vivian and I were exploring that area one day, and I saw a tree move its limb. Shocked me. I went, "Whoa." She said, "What?" I said, "That tree just moved its limb." She's looking around like to see if there's any wind, and there wasn't any. No breeze. She said, "What do you mean it moved its limb?" I said, it didn't move it just like swaying back and forth, and like maybe a breeze or something, but it jerked its limb. And the other one, and then the other one, it's raising its arms. I said, "Listen, watch, just look." And I was afraid that she would become bored and look away, but no, Viv was concentrating on it, and it did. It jerked its limb. And when it did, the other one beside it that hadn't been moving started raising its limbs. And I looked around, and all the trees were raising their limbs. Oh, when it jerked like that, it probably jerked 1/2 an inch, and that's all. Then it would wait. You had to be patient, because then it wouldn't do anything again when it first started that for about 10 minutes. And who can sit still for 10 minutes anymore? But then it got faster and faster, doing it more frequent till it got up, and then it stopped. And I figured that it was kind of like a frosty fall morning, and the sun coming up behind me, and that was all dark in there, but the sun glancing off of the dead fall grasses and coming underneath the trees was warming it, so that they were jerking because of that. And the only, I don't know if that's a right concept, because they might have done that easier when it was cooling and freezing and getting cold, the things contract. But anyway, I went back home, I got my daughters and brought them out, and they had a chance to watch that golden hue ray of light come down and light the edge of the darkness up under the pines, and the trees back in there starting to move. That probably was not the first time they did it. It was the first time we saw it. What, are we blind? We live on this planet. There's millions and millions and billions, trillions of trees. Nope. It was the first time we saw it. And then I happened to realize, if you can't see something, but they still exist, you didn't negate their presence. They're still there. It's like, for example, I mentioned to you folks before that I trap muskrat, mink, coon, possum, skunks, and things growing up here in western Pennsylvania to make a little money. At that time, we observed Christmas, and I used to take my furs in to buy Christmas gifts for people. So as time went on, I learned that one of the most plentiful animal species around here is a muskrat. And yet, hardly anyone that I know of has ever seen one. Now, my brother and I used to take a flashlight and walk out into the middle of Whiteley Creek at nighttime after the sun goes down in fall, just before trapping season, to see the animals and how they were starting to move, because fall was coming. And we would watch the muskrats come out, swim down the bank. We would kind of take note of the routine, if you know what I mean. And we caught a lot of muskrats. We saw beaver. At night like that, we saw coon, a lot of things, because we was out there when they were. But the muskrats are everywhere. You can catch a muskrat in a river. Then you can catch a muskrat in a ditch about this wide. Yeah, like that. About that. Yeah, they are everywhere. But not very many people who live around here have ever seen one. And they have some of the most beautiful fur pelts on them. And their skin never gets wet. When they dive underwater, and they're just like a little beaver, got a rudder for a tail. And when they dive under the water, their hair is oily and very abundant, and they have it's a really shiny, beautiful brown hair, but underneath it's a gray under wool. It looks like wool, but it's really soft. And the water never makes it to the skin, because when the muskrat goes under, the hair pulled close to the body, and it's oily, so the water does not want to travel through it. Anyway, how many times have you seen the grass grow? How many times have you mowed it? There's a lot of things that occurs all around us that we don't see. when it comes to our Creator, He moves at a rate that we cannot appreciate. He can move fast and He can move slow. God is not in a hurry. I got a lot to say about what I've learned about God over the decades. I believe in a Creator. I believe in our spiritual potential. I don't believe in religion. I want you to know that. Religion is what mankind added to their worship of God. And there's many, many religions on this earth, and each one of them thinks that they are the right one. But in my opinion, religion is the chief reason that people do not understand God, aren't close to God, or aren't evolving spiritually like they're supposed to. Let me point out something to you. King Solomon, widely accepted as the wisest person in the pages of the Bible, said that when he wrote a lot of the text of the book of Ecclesiastes. Excuse me for coughing, I can't help it. Solomon said when a person dies, well, you don't die. You never do. When your body dies. He says the body wears out. And it goes back after it wears out, it dies, it quits functioning, and it ends up going back to the atom bank that is the chemistry of the earth, goes back to where it came from. And the spirit goes back to God who gave it. Now that's what Solomon says. Notice the key operating word here is back. What we are goes back to where we came from. We are matter, that's our body is matter, and we inhabit this body. But we, our consciousness, our sentient being, is not matter, it's energy. That's where all of your memories are stored, is in the spirit. That's why you, the sentient conscious being, goes back to God when your body dies. Now, why does it go back to God? Why does it go back to God? Because that's where it came from. You are an eternal spirit being who has always existed. Having a physical experience right now by inhabiting this body. And the two are connected. You know, I got an Apple computer sitting right over here. And down on the ends, it's made up of hardware and software, as most people know. Hardware is the physical device, the monitor, the motherboard, all the things that goes into building a computer. But the software, you might say, is an artificial intelligence. It's like a spirit in a human being. It fires up, now it runs. Well, that's the way we are. we have in our computers a thing called a kernel, Kernel, kernel. And it is that junction point, you might say, if you're trying to define what it is. It's the point where the hardware and the software meet. Now, our bodies has a similar thing. It's called the silver cord. Once again, by the King Solomon writings, it's called silver cord. And he starts out explaining that to us by saying, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before, and then he goes on and starts describing, before you get all worn out, before, and then he gives you 3 kind of allegories, I guess, or metaphors, that he says, before the bowl is broken, that's one of them, at the well. Then here's the key one. I know there's 3, but this is a key one. He says, before the silver cord snaps. That's the connection between your body and your spirit. The only thing you're left with is your spirit and an energy body now that your intelligence, your spirit, your conscious mind is inhabiting. You had it all along, but you couldn't access it because with this arrangement of the body and the spirit, your default body was a physical one. This one here was potential, waiting. When the cord snapped from that one, now your astral body became the default body, and you are headed back to God who gave it. You're going to learn. You are going to go through a life review. You know, you talk worried about people say, well, God's going to judge it. No, you're going to judge yourself. That's what the book of life really is about in the Bible. You're going to judge yourself. And how is that going to be? Well, it's going to be this way. From all that I've read of all the different religions, each religion has a little bit of truth in it. So if you're widely read, you start to see this picture after a while. Here's what I got to watch. I don't digress and forget what the heck I'm talking about. But everybody that has had what's called an NDE, a near-death experience, before that cord was snapped, while their body was not functioning, their heart stopped breathing, had all the clinical conditions of a person that just died. They might be dead for a few minutes, maybe several minutes, or an hour or more. But if the cord hasn't snapped, they didn't achieve or cross a threshold that was planned for them before they came here. And so they come back. But while they're there, they go through a past life review. They judge themselves. And here's how that happens. They, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, their life passes before them. I mean quickly, but they can see it all. But they see it all from someone else's perspective, not theirs. People that they have hurt in their past life, they really get that emphatic empathy, that feeling of the way that person felt when they were hurt by you or by me. Whoever is having this near-death experience has made people cry, has made them feel sad, have abandoned them, have done something that is the opposite of love and outgoing concern. indifference, people that don't care. They have no empathy for anybody, no compassion. Well, they get to see themselves from a vantage point of the person that they hurt. How do you like that? That really makes you, there are those things. Maybe you've heard this before. They say there are those people that if they don't already know, you can't tell them. Right. Another way of saying that is, if you have, say, a problem with drugs, or a problem with cigarettes, or a problem with beer or alcohol, as long as you make excuses for it and want to continue to live like that, even when there's times you don't want to, but you still are taken over by it and end up doing that drug or alcohol again over and over and over. And there's no number of people that can say, why don't you just quit smoking? Or why don't you quit drinking? Or you shouldn't have a beer that you can't handle it. And as long as other people are saying, look, and they might even be sincere and earnestly come to you and say, come on, I'll help you. I'll help. Well, you know what? Nope. Here's when it's going to happen. When it comes from you. When the desire to change, and I mean really start out on a new road, or the road you're on is a good one, just turn around and go the other direction. When it comes from your own heart, that's when you'll do it. That is when you'll do it. No amount of talking by somebody else can cause you to quit cigarettes. You have to want to, or to quit alcohol. And that's the way it is when your change is to quit hurting people, to quit hating instead of showing outgoing concern and love. That has to come from the inside. So God has designed it that when we die, our body is gone, it don't work anymore. That's all right. The Apostle Paul says we'll never be without a body. You will not be spirits, he says, just floating around without a body. Yeah, right. But the default body you were designed to have is a body made of energy. It's a light body. And I don't mean weight-wise. I mean it's made out of light. Actually, everything in the whole universe is made out of light. But even all matter starts out as energy. However, what I want to say is, you go back to God and you go through a life review. How could I have done better? And you have a counseling session. And yes, reincarnation is a real thing. And the Bible teaches it. It even teaches it, and people don't see it. But and each life is going back to school again to learn. Don't treat people like you did in the other life. You had a life review. You found out. You judged yourself. Nobody judged you, but you judged yourself, and you see what you need to do. Okay, so you go back again. You're working toward a point. And it does have to do with frequency and vibration of your very being. And as you go through, just like grass growing, you know how God does that? Well, it takes cycles, years, decades, maybe past lives that count into the multiple hundreds, before we finally get to a point where now, instead of being reincarnated again next time, now you cross a threshold. You was on a positive path and trying to ascend up that positive path. So now it's time for you not to be reincarnated, to be ascended now, which is a resurrection. It's one that people can't witness and see it happening. But when you die, that body goes and you go back to God who gave it. You're not coming back in a physical body. You are with them where you belong. You are now in the family of God because you are the offspring of God. That's where you came from. And the idea, the whole thing here, if you want to play this game, is to get back, having brought all of the unique experiences, all of the mistakes. What has happened here is when you go back, you stand there with God and that family as a unique spirit being. You started out with just the earnest of God's Spirit, like a blank spirit that actually quickened, Paul says, the physical body, gave vitality to it, gave life to it, energy. You know, Peter said that a body without a spirit is dead. So what's a spirit then? Well, if a body is dead, if it don't have one, it's life. It's energy that powers up the body. And so you go through several of them until you're hoping, and one of these days, your default body is going to be back with God as God is God. He calls us his children, calls us his offspring. People don't take that serious enough. And they want it done. If that's the case, let's do it this afternoon. Could you imagine if grass did grow that way? You just got done mowing it, sit down on the porch and get you a cup of coffee like that, and look out and the grass goes, time to mow it again. No. God is a lawgiver. He has put all of this into the proper contexts, and it all works perfect together. I do believe in a first cause. I believe in a God, but I got to tell you this. Paul says there are gods of many. There's plenty of gods. There's good ones and there's bad ones. Because all living things, if you can get this, are an offspring from God. God is the source of life, sentient life. He's the source of it. There are, when the universe, as far as we can see, we say it started about 14 billion years ago. And it started expanding. Okay, follow me with this. 14 billion years ago, pow, the Big Bang, and now it's expanding. There's no Earth all this time. No. There's planets coming into being. You know, the laws of God makes them attract to each other, and then the dust forms into a planet, and it gets so much pressure there, they get hot and they catch on fire, they start burning, and then there's a nuclear reaction. You got suns, and you got planets and all that happening for 14 billion years, and then when it gets up to the 10 billion mark, the next one that's formed is the Earth. And it has been here for about 4 billion, from 10 billion to 14 billion. But all of these planets here are going to follow the laws of evolution that God set as his mechanism to create physical stuff. And it's, you know, these beings, like, who was that? Alan Watts. He was a philosopher I listened to a good bit. I got a kick out of him. He's talking about like an apple tree. out in the field there, and he said, one day, what does an apple tree do? Well, it appled. It was a tree that didn't have anything on it, and then as time went by, fruit grew, it appled and dropped them all over the ground. He said, so way out in deep space, we see all of these galaxies with stars. And around all of these stars are planets, systems, star systems. And there's so many galaxies that you cannot imagine, let alone even think about counting. So he said, and then one day, way out here, they've been doing that for so long, forming, growing. He said that there's this one out here that came into being, pulled together by the laws of physics, called the Earth. He said, and then, just like the apple tree appled, he said the Earth did an odd thing. The time came when it peopled. There's people all over the place. That is evolution. So I'm trying to think of why I told you that. Is here we find ourselves, okay? Way out here. But this creation has existed for 10 billion years before we ever come along. And all of the planets there, as they evolved under God's laws, they peopled. But because of the different gravity, the different mass, the different amounts of light, different amounts of heat, all of these influences forced them to create people that had different influences on them and ended up looking different than one another throughout all of the universe. Well, they've been around for so long and growing in intelligence and becoming super smart and intelligent. They started flying around in spaceships, checking out the planets close to, like we're trying to do now with Mars. And they've been doing that for 10 billion years before we ever come along. Now here we come along, we've been here for 4 billion now. Well, these people have learned to travel, and they've been visiting us for a few million years. They've already been visiting us. And the earth started peopling before they come. And the people on the earth were developed, and they were like the Cro-Magnon man, if you're familiar with what they call about prehistoric people. So these people were offspring of God just like we are. They had the Spirit of God or they wouldn't be alive. Like Peter said, body without a spirit is dead. It's got one, so it's alive. And they've been alive first, before us. Even Jesus Christ once, when they asked, where's the kingdom of God at? He told them, he said, it doesn't come with observation. And you are of this world. I am not of this world. What did Christ say there? Did he say he was from another world? Is he an extraterrestrial? Well, yeah, you could say that. But anyway, here's the thing. They came here from different regions of the creation that God made. And when you look at the record of this planet, you see that they came from different regions, looked different. They landed here, and they had colonies here. Colonies. And the beings on this planet saw them come from the sky, and they called them gods. They weren't wrong, but even them, the people who were alive, it's going to be God. One of these days, going to be just like them. But A lot of these gods speak throughout the Bible. And they're called God by those that wrote them down because that's what they were to them. And it's not the same God speaking. You know, the Bible says this is a 3-word definition of God. God is love. Love, outgoing concern, and it's agape love, godly love. Now, was that the God that killed everybody on planet Earth except for 8 people and their pets? Said, get on this boat because I'm going to kill everybody else. Is that God? You know, the Bible tells, no, there's a lot of gods in the Bible. Some of them weren't very good. You know, we got this problem over in the Middle East, and we've always had it, about Palestinians and the Israelis killing each other. There was a time when, recorded in the Bible, God told Israel to kill all of them. Every man, woman, and child. That wasn't the God of love. What God was that? He said, kill every one of them. And Israel had a little bit of compassion and couldn't do all of it. But they're doing it nowadays. They couldn't kill the children. And so they became a thorn in Israel's side forever up till now, because they didn't listen to the God. Well, this was a God that ran that, what do you want to say, colony? And there's different colonies from different planets that were established around the world at the same time. We had over here with the Egyptians, the Anunnaki gods, who made it here and tried to give the mankind they found in that colony over there at Mesopotamia and Babylon, they tried to upgrade them real quick with their own DNA. They tried to give them a little kick down the road instead of having to go through the slow time of evolution like God intended. And while they were doing that on this side of the world, on the other side, the same experience happened to the Mayans. And they created such enigmas that now the intelligent people, we come along and we see this. How in the world did the Mayans know that? How did the Egyptians build them pyramids? And why did they build them? And how come they got pyramids? Okay, I'm gonna back this down now and stop. I don't want to make them too long. I want to tell you one of these times about the Dagon people of Africa. They're an enigma. The information that they knew about the heavens. And we did not know it until like the 1930s. And when scientists found out about it, they said, how did people know that? How did they know that? You have to have a telescope to know that. Well, that's part of the history of this planet. We've been visited by the people that were first populating the planets, got here before we evolved enough. We're the same as them. Gods are alive. We are alive. Angels is one of the things that we will be. It's a transitional place between where we're at now and actually becoming a god in the aspect of being a family member that's serving with their full potential. I'm telling you, folks, life is amazing. a mystery, and it's so beautiful. But the most powerful energy in this universe is love. And love casts out all fear, like the Apostle Paul says. If you learn to love others and you live your life that way, you just become more powerful and powerful as your life goes along. And if anybody has a problem with any evil beings, they shun you, they flee, because it has to do with polarity, positive and negative, frequency and vibration. And if they come in your presence, just your being, your aura, the energy that exudes out from you, it neutralizes their evil energy, and they become weaker. They just start to feel weak, and they feel like they want to leave and flee. The earth is in bad shape right now, but it was prophesied to be this way. Anyway, I am not a religious man. I just want you to know that. I'd have to say religious, but I transitioned and evolved away from being religious to being enlightened. There's a big difference. I consider spirituality being a big part of my life now. But religion is that thing that deceived me for so long. Like George Carlin said, he said that these televangelists and religion has got the biggest con game going. He said, here's what they tell you. He said, they tell you that there's this old man in the sky who watches everything you do. And he has 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do them, just do one of them. He's got this place where he'll throw you. It's hot, it's dark, it burns, you'll be in pain, and you'll suffer forever and ever and ever and scream, and you'll never get out. But he loves you. He loves you, and he needs money. Yeah, that's what George Carlin said, and he is right, I believe. He just, he's all powerful, he said. God's all, this figure of a God, they got this old man in the sky who's watching you. He's got all powerful. He's everywhere. He's omnipresent. He's got all the power there is, but he just can't handle money. He just ain't good at handling money. Listen. That is religion in a nutshell. I'm going to tell you that as far as what I finally learned, and I used to teach what the Bible had to offer there. Not knowing, as I studied deeper and deeper, there was stuff in the Bible I didn't even believe before. But now I could see it. And I got to a point where, in order for me, as it says in the 6th chapter of the book of Hebrews, to go on to perfection, that word perfection means maturity also. It says talking about baptisms and forgiveness and all those important things in your basic church services. Paul said, okay, that's enough of that. If you got to that point, now you're ready to step out. Let's go on to maturity. He says, let's go on to more mature things. And this we do if God permits. So everybody's not allowed to go on. You got to be ready to go on. And when you do, I found myself looking into reincarnation. I saw 3 places in the Bible, even some where Jesus Christ was involved, that supported reincarnation. And then when you start going on to maturity, you actually are walking toward being enlightened to the whole sphere and scheme of things, instead of just going to work, going to church on the Sunday meeting services somewhere and having a potluck meal. Okay, folks, that's it for today. I love you all. Thank you for dropping by. Appreciate it.